I have done nothing, monsieur. Only let me speak. Let me answer for myself, and you will see I am no conspirator. The room is small. The lamp casts more shadow than light. Dust settles on a row of unread ledgers, and the air smells of tallow and old paper. Dante stands with wrists still raw from the rope that bound them on the quay, his collar open, his voice the only steady thing in the room. The man behind the desk wears the practiced face of 100 interrogations. For a moment, something changes. He leans forward and reads the letter again, slower this time. His eyes lift to the young sailor's face, searching for the lie that should be there but is not. His pen hovers above the page while the ink dries at its tip. Somewhere beyond a half-open door, a clerk coughs. The lamp gutters. The inspector sets the letter down, squares its edges with the side of his hand, and reaches for the seal cooling beside him. Hope lingers for the span of a single held breath. Procedure survives it. His hands hang at his sides, fingers still curled into the memory of a rope no longer there. He watches the inspector's pen move across page after page of names he will never know, each file closed with the same flat stroke and never a moment's hesitation. Near the bottom of one page, an old priest's claim catches the lamplight. Years in his cell, insisting on a fortune buried where no one will search. The margin beside it is already dry. The fancy of a diseased mind. Dante opens his mouth to explain again, then falls silent. Nothing remains to explain to a man already writing the next line. The hand moves too quickly, too lightly. It has done this countless times before. His own letter lies open beside the ledger, naming no crime, begging no mercy, claiming only innocence. The pen dips. 3 words cross the corner of the page, plain as a delivery address. Dangerous Bonapartist. No one reads the words aloud. No one needs to. Warm wax falls and hardens cold, bearing with it the last belief that he will ever be heard. Bread first, then water, then the door checked against a number chalked above the frame, never against a name. The new governor walks the corridor as a clerk moves down a ledger column, door by door, line by line, carrying nothing forward from the man before him. Whether he knows what the old governor knew no longer matters. For longer than Dante can measure, the voice through the slot has spoken his name. This morning it does not. Number 34. He waits for something more to follow, a correction, an order, even the small mercy of a mistake. Nothing comes. He answers, not because the number means anything, but because refusing it would cost more than he has left to spend. The calculation arrives without emotion, quick and clean, the arithmetic of a man already counting life by different measures. Bread arrives. He leaves it untouched. Water arrives. He lets it stand until the surface clouds. Days fold into one another with no name to mark them, only untouched meals and the silence that follows, a silence the jailer no longer questions. The body answers first, a tightening beneath the ribs, a heaviness in hands that once tied knots faster than thought. He has calculated his own ending and found peace with it. To stop eating is not surrender. It is the last choice that belongs entirely to him. Strength slips away in losses too small to notice until nothing remains. He lies against the stone and waits for tomorrow to leave him with less than today. Then, beneath the wall near the floor, comes a sound. Faint, persistent. Not the rasp of rats, not water. A scraping, deliberate, stopping, then beginning again. He does not move. He scarcely breathes. Something beyond the wall is trying to break through, and for the first time since a number replaced his name, Edmond Dantès wants to know what waits on the other side. The scraping beneath the wall continues, patient and unhurried, like a tide determined to outlast the stone itself. Edmond presses his ear against the cold surface and remains there for an hour. By morning, he has reached a decision. He eats. He drinks until the cup is empty, and when the jailer's key turns, he answers in the flat voice of a man who has abandoned resistance. The jailer notices nothing. The work demands patience that anger cannot provide. An iron handle is filed against stone until it can cut. A damp corner is chosen because it crumbles more easily than the rest. Every night wins another handful of progress. Every morning the dust is pressed into the seams of the bedstead and smoothed away before the spy hole opens. The months pass without complaint. Then, one night, the tool finds no resistance at all, only empty air. The scraping beyond the wall falls silent, caught by its own surprise. A voice comes through the opening. Number 27. Edmond does not answer with his name. Too much time has passed for certainty that it still belongs to him. Instead, he offers the only proof left that a man, not a number, is listening. A quiet question sent through the gap the years have finally opened. The stone gives way all at once, no longer by inches but in a single slab. Dust rises through the lamplight like breath made visible. Edmond claws the last fragments free with bare hands, his nails splitting against the grit. Yet he never pauses to feel the pain. The gap is wide enough. A hand appears first, thin and scarred across the knuckles, fingers spread against the broken edge to test whether the opening will hold. Then a forearm, then a shoulder, twisting sideways through the narrow passage, breath rough behind clenched teeth. At last, a face emerges where, for more than a year, there had been only a voice and the scrape of iron on stone. Pale, deeply lined, with gray eyes still sharp through the dust, the stranger kneels upon the floor, his chest rising and falling from the effort. Edmond kneels beside him without a word. He wraps a hand around the stranger's forearm, solid and warm, faintly trembling, and keeps it there until touch confirms what sight already knows. He is no longer alone. The lamp provides the only light, and the stranger begins by studying the breach he carved. He presses both palms against the stone and circles the room with measured steps, counting walls, corners, and angles by long habit. 4 sides, granite behind every one, cut for the single purpose of keeping men where they are. At the last corner, he tests the surface once more, then lets his hand fall away. He turns and offers his name with quiet certainty. Abbé Faria, once of Rome, kept here since the year they decided a united Italy was worth 4 walls and the rest of a life. The escape Edmond imagined an hour before has vanished into granite. In its place stands a name, and the presence of a man large enough to fill the silence that surrounded it. A lamp burns in the corner, fed by carefully hoarded fat. Its wick, twisted from shirt thread, saved 1 strand at a time through years no calendar recorded. By that dim light, Faria has fashioned another existence. Pens carved from fishbone, ink brewed from soot and wine, and pages torn from his own linen, covered edge to edge in writing too fine for a careless jailer to notice. Edmond turns a chisel in his hand, iron rescued from a chimney brace and sharpened night after night against the floor, and understands the lesson at once. Nothing here was given, every tool was earned. There is still more. A rope knotted from torn sheets and tested beneath a man's weight. A plan for the outer wall, drawn and erased countless times. And one guard, the only keeper with a key, whose silence might be purchased with a single blow. Faria refuses that bargain. Take a man's life to save my own. No. I have waited too long to leave this cell a worse man than I entered it. Edmond offers no reply. He places the chisel beside the lamp, and for the first time in longer than memory can measure, the darkness beyond the door no longer feels like the edge of the world. No parchment lies open for this inquiry. No ledger waits to be filled. There are only questions, asked in careful order, as patient as the chisel that carved the tunnel. Faria takes apart the wedding feast piece by piece, asking who sat where, who spoke last, and whose hand might have reached for ink before the night was over. Edmond answers in fragments: a guest list, an empty captaincy, the effortless smile of a man who seemed too agreeable. He has replayed that day through endless nights, yet never arranged its pieces this way, spread beneath another man's patient judgment while his own hands remain pressed against the stone. The questions tighten. Who stood to lose a ship? Who stood to lose a woman? Who needed Edmond Dantès removed so cleanly that suspicion would never follow? Faria works through each answer as he once worked through rock, without haste and without mercy, until only 2 names remain. Then he stops. Danglars wrote the letter. Fernand carried it to the post. Edmond remains silent. The names settle through the cell like heavy stones finding the ground. His hands stay fixed where they are. 14 years of shapeless grief contract, in a single breath, into 2 faces clear enough to remember forever. The 2 names linger only a moment before Faria sets them aside. They cannot explain a magistrate's haste, the vanished trial, or 14 years without a hearing. His thoughts return to the letter Edmond carried from Elba, sealed and unread, addressed to a man named Noirtier. Faria turns the name over with deliberate care, fitting it against every detail of the interrogation. The young prosecutor's hesitation, his private questions about the packet, and the relief that crossed his face when Edmond admitted he knew nothing of its contents. Faria speaks in the same measured tone. Noirtier is Villefort's father. The revelation locks every piece into place. Danglars forged the accusation, Fernand delivered it, and the prosecutor buried the truth forever, not for justice, but to shield his own father's name from disgrace. Edmond does not answer. He scarcely moves. Something inside him settles into perfect order, no longer grief and no longer rage, but design itself. 3 men, 3 debts, a single purpose. Vengeance is no longer an emotion carried through the years. It has become a certainty, fixed as the stone surrounding him. Faria watches the candle gutter and lets the darkness deepen. Something in Edmond's stillness troubles him more than any fever ever had. His hands, no longer quick with chalk and string, rest quietly in his lap. He speaks without raising his eyes. I gave you the names so you could live. I did not measure what carrying them would cost. The flame never returns. Edmond offers no reply. There is no act to forgive, only a burden now revealed, and the man who first uncovered it. Faria folds his hands, a habit carried over from another life. Whatever comes next, he knows he has opened the door through which it must pass. The chalk slips from Faria's fingers before the sentence is finished. His arm twists inward, the wrist curling like a claw, and the lamplight catches the white of one eye rolling back. Edmond catches him before his head strikes the stone. The jaw works without sound, spittle gathering at the corner of his mouth, while the leg that carved a tunnel through bedrock lies useless beneath him. The convulsion passes, but Faria's right side never answers again. He lifts his left hand to touch the one that remains still and understands, even before he speaks, that the tunnel ends here. Then he gestures toward the door, toward a freedom he can no longer reach. Edmond does not move. I swore to you once, he says. I do not unswear an oath because it has grown heavy. Something inside Faria settles, half grief and half relief, like a man released from a choice he feared making alone. Come back tomorrow, he says, his words thick on one side of his mouth. Tomorrow I will give you something greater than freedom. The tunnel remains exactly as the chalk left it, half drawn and useless without 2 able bodies. Overhead, the guard's footsteps pass in perfect indifference to what has been lost and to what has been promised. A loose thread is all that guards the secret. Faria's good hand worries at the seam of his robe until a square of cloth, gray with grime and years of handling, slips into his palm. Edmond leans closer. Half of the old man's body no longer obeys him, yet his eyes remain sharp, fixed on the cloth with unwavering purpose. The Spada line ends with a cardinal, Faria says, his voice thick on one side. Poisoned, like a dozen churchmen before him, the Borgias dined with the men they meant to bury and toasted them by name. He recites dates without hesitation, the order of deaths and the manner of each, too exact for invention and too measured for madness. Then he lifts the cloth toward the lamp, not to burn it, but to warm it. Heat spreads through the fabric, and hidden lines emerge from nothing, brown and deliberate. Words appear where none existed a moment before. Edmond draws in a quiet breath. Faria does not smile at the revelation. He has watched the same miracle unfold alone in the darkness too many times to marvel at it now. "This is not delirium," he says. "This is inheritance." The cloth disappears back into the seam of the robe, folded along the creases worn into it by countless years. Faria's hand remains steady through long practice and quiet resolve. Beneath the third creek inlet at the high tide line stands a granite spur shaped like a fist. Beneath it lies 2 million the Borgias never found. Edmond asks no questions about maps or memory. He no longer searches for proof. He listens instead to the calm certainty in Faria's voice, unchanged by the thought of unimaginable wealth. "I had a nephew once," Faria says. "He was taken from me before this prison claimed the rest." His grip tightens around Edmond's wrist, the strength of one good hand carrying all the feeling the other cannot. "You are not lost. I name you my heir, to the gold and to everything no notary could ever place into a will." The final words come without ceremony. "Son of my captivity." Outside, the sea continues its endless work against the rock, indifferent to the promise made within these walls. Between two prisoners now rests both a fortune and a bond stronger than it, though neither has yet laid claim to either. Morning filters through the high slit, thin and gray, marking no hour that matters. Faria breaks the bread from habit rather than hunger, and quietly passes the larger piece across. For a time, there is only the sound of eating, and beneath it, the sea wearing at the rock as it has every day before this one. Edmond fits the loose stone back over the passage, one piece at a time, his movements careful now, almost gentle. Faria watches with the quiet satisfaction of a man tending the last fire he will ever need. Neither speaks of the treasure. Neither speaks of the name given in the darkness. The hidden gallery closes, as it always has, without ceremony, leaving two men once more on opposite sides of a wall that no longer truly divides them. Outside, the tide turns. Inside, for one more hour, nothing is demanded and nothing is owed. The shudder begins in the jaw, faint as a cough, then sinks into the shoulders and refuses to stop. Edmond knows this tremor. He has counted it twice before. He reaches for the vial kept warm against his chest, presses it to lips already falling slack, and waits for the old shaking to pass. It does not pass. The hand that always closes around his now lies open, palm upward, the fingers loose as discarded rope. "You are the son the Bastille never let me keep. Remember, not the gold, the island, Monte Cristo." The next breath is long. The one after stretches longer still. And then, Edmond remains where he is for the span of 3 church bells that never ring. The turnkey finds them at last, lantern swinging, his voice weary before it crosses the threshold. He calls for the surgeon. The surgeon does not hurry. 2 words settle everything: dead, certain, and a third follows with ledger-like indifference: sack. Edmond listens as they measure rope and canvas across the body of the only father he ever chose. They speak only of weight, of stitching, of tomorrow's tide, never of the man himself. When they leave, the cell keeps a single name where 2 voices once lived: Monte Cristo, and no one remains to guide him. The cell is smaller without him. Edmond sits where the mat once folded double. Tonight, the cold claims every corner. He listens for the drip inside the wall, the sound Faria taught him to read like a clock. Tonight, it tells him nothing. It only falls. Hunger arrives first, untouched by grief. Despair follows and refuses to leave. He surrendered his name for a number in this place. Now the one man who still spoke that name without hesitation is gone, and the number alone keeps breathing. Footsteps cross overhead. The smell of rope and waxed canvas seeps beneath the door. They have come for the body already. By dusk, it will follow the cliff path into the sea, as every nameless prisoner follows it. Edmond does not weep while they work. He counts. He measures the weight of an old man's frame against his own. He measures the hours between the final round and the gravedigger's arrival. He measures what a burial sack cannot distinguish. A living man can hold his breath. A dead man has no need. Before the lantern passes for the last time, Edmond Dantès has abandoned every thought of dying inside this cell. He has chosen Faria's place on the boat to the cliffs, and he means to collect from the sea the debt it has carried for too long. Canvas closes over his face first. Then comes the dark. Two men lift the sack between them, and the weight inside offers no resistance. It does not flinch. It does not breathe in any way another pair of eyes could notice. Edmond spent the night learning how a corpse hangs from another man's grip. He spends the morning proving the lesson. Stone steps. 11 of them. Each strikes through his spine before the count reaches his mind. A door groans on a hinge left unoiled since before the war. Salt air slips through the burlap, the first true air in 14 years, and he cannot turn toward it or let his chest answer the longing. The men never speak. Rope strains at the seams above him. Boots climb the uneven path along the rampart. Another rope tightens low around his ankles. Then comes the weight, iron, cold even through the cloth, dragged across stone and bound fast above his feet. He imagined this moment through 3 sleepless nights, yet imagination never carried the burden of its true pull or its true chill. The footsteps stop. Somewhere overhead, a voice counts with practiced indifference. 1, 2. Edmond fills his lungs once, completely. The last full breath he intends to claim by choice. 3. The hands let go. Then comes the water. Not a sound but a wall, closing over the sack, the iron, and the man who chose this plunge, instead of waiting behind stone for a death fixed by another man's calendar. Cold finds him first. Not pain. Not yet. Only absolute cold, closing over 14 years of stone in a single movement of the sea. The sack drinks deep and grows heavier than the iron lashed beneath it. Bubbles scrape past his face. There is no telling where the surface lies. Salt floods the weave against his lips. His wrists strain against the rope. The rope yields nothing. His legs kick once, then again, and meet only water. Below, the iron keeps pulling with patient certainty. Above, daylight fades through depths that cannot yet be measured. Sound disappears entirely, replaced by pressure that fills both ears at once. His chest guards the breath chosen on the rampart. It does not surrender it. Darkness closes from every side, the way stone once closed, the way water closes now with greater finality.